Chapter 1. I put my hands on the iron trail and leaned forward. The dark, murky water was enticing me with its gentle flows. Ever since I was a child, I've maintained this special relationship. I could talk to it. I could share my fears. I could be myself. London Bridge was quite empty at that time of night. There was only me and the ducks down in the water. Everyone was at home, cuddled up in the warmth with their loved ones. Everyone but me. I'd been one of them before my divorce. Now, I was a man who lived in a hotel instead of my own house, and all because my ex-wife had snatched it from me. During my lonely nights, I was going over my miserable life in my head, hugging my pillows as my only source of intimacy. Love was all I wanted to have. As I reached the hotel, I caught sight of my crumpled reflection in the window and frowned. It was still too early for bed, but too late for supper, so I decided to have a drink instead. The dim atmosphere in the bar camouflaged its emptiness, turning it into a mystery. I threw a quick glance at the tables where two young couples were devoted to one another, ignoring the rest of the world. And one heavily drunk businessman was smiling into his glass. I headed to the bar and sat next to a well-groomed, handsome man, thin and tall, with a fine body and muscles that proudly pressed against the fabric of his clothes. His aftershave hit my nostrils, and the words tumbled from my mouth by themselves. Chanel. Very interesting choice. The man smiled at me, and two charming dimples appeared on his cheeks. They reminded me of my ex-wife. I sank into his warm brown eyes, beneath his well-trimmed eyebrows. Drink? He asked. I nodded. The barman slid a whiskey in my direction, and I grabbed the cold drink. My dry throat devoured the contents of the glass, savouring the trail of fire it left in its wake. The man smiled again. He ordered another. I felt relaxed. Love troubles? He asked, observing my face. I nodded again. Welcome to the club. He finished his drink and ordered another. I watched the ice in my glass slowly cooling the drink. My marriage was still somewhere in the back of my head, causing me more pain than I could ever have expected. My wife used me to gain a citizenship, and then announced she was gay. I felt I could trust my friend by drink. Love comes in different ways and shapes, he said, without looking at me. We talked about women, and I drank a lot. More than usual. The female part of the world meant only pain for me. His laugh was calming. We spent so much time in the bar. I think it actually began to close around us. Some parts of the night still remain murky for me thanks to my good old friend. We'll just call him Whiskey. The next morning, I woke up in the guy's bed. Naked. My head was spinning and pulsating, and my throat was dry. On the table next to me there was a note written with my name on it. Morning, sunshine. You'll find all you need in the bathroom. There is a new suit on the chair for you. I can't wait to see you in it. Dave. XX. I read it again. How long have I slept? I wondered. I hardly managed to hold my heavy head up. The newborn sun was spreading its innocent light. The windows were glowing, everything draped in a yellow hue. I slid my feet in some fluffy slippers and advanced to the bathroom. Designed in black tiles, with a stylish bathtub, a snow-white towel waiting for me on the trails. After my sobering shower and skincare routine, I went to have breakfast. My mind could not piece together the puzzle from the night before, with some pieces missing. So, I decided to leave it for later. My future was unpredictable and I had no power over it. The recent event found me unprepared and full of questions that needed answers. But first, I had to take care of my empty stomach. I ate a delicious English breakfast, washed down with a good amount of coffee. Then I took the lift and advanced to my room to find it untouched by a human hand. By my hand, in any case, as I spent the night in someone else's room. A handsome young man was observing me from the small mirror on the bedside cabinet. I could feel my blood speeding in my veins. and I needed to find out exactly what had happened, as I was both happy and confused at the same time. I decided to take a walk along the river to try and clear the cloudiness from my head. The morning sun lit up the streets, where dozens of pigeons were searching for crumbs, fallen from people's sandwiches. The young blonde girl from the flower shop smiled at me, and I smiled back. People rushed around in a hurry, journeying to their offices, but not me. I was counting my steps to the river where hundreds of hungry seagulls were shouting and circling above my head. Someone was eating oily fish and chips. Predatory birds observed him, waiting for the moment they could dive at his food in order to satisfy their appetites. Parents with children were watching and enjoying the show from a safe distance. Their radiant faces sent me back in time, and I wished I'd had the same experience with my parents when I was a child. When I went back to meet the man who had given me the warm welcome last night, I found the hotel crowded with police. My heart raced as I ran to our room. I almost fainted at the sight. He was on the floor, naked. The man who had been my host. He lay lifeless. I leaned on the doorframe. My whole world collapsed for the second time, but this time, much faster. My lungs tried to open for a life-saving intake of oxygen, but found nothing but poison. In the room was a woman with a brush. She dusted the fingerprints on the surfaces in the room. A man was taking photographs of Dave. There were other people walking around the room, searching everywhere, seeking out clues. All of them were wearing gloves. My wet towel was still on the bathroom floor. My old clothes were still on the chair, and the note was still on the table. I supposed they'd knew my identity. The inspector gave someone a wave to invite me to sit down. The whole situation looked unreal. I expected to wake up at any moment now. But the bad feeling did not leave me. A shadow fell over me and I sank, helpless. I was questioned but had no useful information to clear the case, except to confirm the origin of the clothes and the towel. The truth was that I did not know the man. I had met him only last night. The inspector stared at me. I could imagine how it looked in his eyes. "Do not leave town," he said calmly, as if I had anywhere to flee. At the reception desk, a young girl, barely 20, greeted me and said there was a message for me. I looked puzzled. No one knew I was there. She handed me a note. "Do not talk to the police. I have to see you tonight at Sailor's, 5 p.m. No name, no signature. I asked the girl about a place called Sailor's, and she explained there was a small pub around the corner with that name. I had to kill some time before meeting the sender of the note. Walking without direction, I found myself on the bank of the river once more. But this time, the feelings inside me were completely different. I'd not been able to find the answers to the previous questions, and now, here I was with even more. My heart sank as quickly as it had warmed. The mysterious man from the night before had gone as quickly as he had appeared. Life was cruel. I did not want to be surprised, so I went to Sailor's earlier than I'd been told. The pub was quiet, with just a few visitors sharing some jokes. I ordered a lager and sat at a table. The time was 10 to 5. When the clock chimed 5, next to me sat a very wide man, almost 2 meters tall. He smelled of fish and oil. Time has a habit of flying. He patted my shoulder, then lifted his glass and drank. The liquid spilled over his bushy beard. He looked around, then moved his eyes to me, looking mad somehow, and stood up. "I do not know you," he said, and walked away. Neither did I. My shoulder hurt. Then, all of a sudden, a tiny Chinese man popped up in front of me and knocked me down on the floor. The noise drew everyone's attention, and I felt the heaviness of at least 10 pairs of eyes. The small man, obviously drunk, threw up, and the pub owner kicked him out. I stood up, a little dizzy from the accident, pulled my shirt down and left the venue. The cold breeze outside made me realise my head was injured. As I walked in the hotel, The bellboy informed me that someone had been waiting for me for an hour. My eyes searched the lobby and stopped at a young, well-dressed man with smooth black hair. He stood up and graciously walked up to me. "Can we have a word?" I waved to the bar, but he stopped me. "A more private place." I invited him to my room. Once there, he nervously walked up and down the room and cautiously asked, "Did he suffer?" I had no idea what to reply. I did not know the answer. He was looking through the window, avoiding my glance. He had the habit of inviting nice-looking men back to his room. We had an open relationship. Now, I added two and two, and felt the unease of the situation. The man guessed my thoughts and tried to smile. "I'm used to that." I had no idea. The stupid excuse tumbled from my lips, and I hurried to ask, "How long have you known each other?" "Nearly 5 years. I'm Marcel, by the way." He turned to me with a hand ready to accept mine. "Pete." I stretched my hand, and he shook it. "I know." He was still holding my hand and continued, "We were going to have a party in 2 days, celebrating our anniversary." The man's eyes watered. He was such a nice man. Kind, gentle, and very passionate. We had our ups and downs, but never ugly moments. Then he told me their story. They had met on a trip to Egypt, both sharing the same passion for travelling. It was love at first sight. And they had turned the whole journey into one of romance. Since then, they had travelled around the world, visiting new countries and enjoying life. 2 years after they had met, Marcel moved into Dave's house. But a year later, Dave's wild blood wanted more than just one relationship. Marcel agreed to give him space and moved out, leaving Dave free as a bird. They started dating again to revive the love between them. Dave dated other men as well as Marcel, so they could still enjoy their love, but enrich it with more experience they found in relationships outside of their own. The man looked relieved after sharing their story. We agreed to meet the next day and talk about the funeral. I took off my blazer, and in its pocket I found a key, small enough to be from the safe. But how did it end up in my pocket? What was it for? And what was behind all of this? I had to find out. For a very short time, my life changed its direction dramatically. The man I slept with was a turnover I had not expected at all.